Friends, and welcome to another session of the New Age Infrastructure, the Analytical and Design Solutions, a 1 week faculty development program organized by Marwadi University and sponsored by AICTE Atal. So we are on the second day, third session, and the eminent speaker with us is Dr. Yogesh Shah. Before I introduce him officially, let me tell you that we were colleagues for batchmates, and for almost 6 years we worked together. And Dr. Shah was associated with Marwadi University also. So right now, Dr. Yogesh Shah is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at Institute of Infrastructure Technology Research and Management, popularly known as IIT RAM in Ahmedabad. He completed BE and ME from the MS University, Baroda, and PhD from IIT Roorkee. He has guided number of the PG students and PhD students, and the area of research is pavement management system and pavement material. He has professional membership of Indian Road Congress and Indian Society for Technical Education, and he has more than 10 years of the teaching, research, and industrial experience. He has published many research papers and articles in international and national referred journals and conferences. So, without further delay, I hand over this session to Dr. Yogesh Shah. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Yogesh, my good friend. Thanks for the introduction. And again, it is my pleasure to be sharing my a little bit knowledge that I have in this field and providing me this opportunity to share and discuss about the same topic with all the participants. I will just share the screen.
Right, sir, with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, very good afternoon to all the participants. As I could see the schedule of this faculty development program, most of the topics were relevant to the structures, specifically concrete structures. And I'm not sure amongst the participants also how many of you are having a background of transportation engineering or transportation field. So looking to the other contents of this FDP, I had also included one topic where we are going to talk about rigid payments. So basically, we are going to discuss about payment evaluation techniques for rigid payments. Now, as you all must be aware, when we talk about different types or categories of payments, broadly, we always say that there are two types. One is flexible and the second one is rigid. So rigid basically is a concrete payment. And along with concrete, we do have reinforcement in certain forms like tie bars, dowel bars, etc. And the purpose of providing the reinforcement is completely different than that which we have for our other normal residential concrete structures. So let us initiate. My initial few slides, I will be just introducing that where from this payment evaluation comes, what is the background of that, what is rigid payments, a brief introduction about the rigid payment, and then we'll be going for a payment evaluation technique. The only purpose is that when we'll be using certain terms related to rigid payments in evaluation techniques, we should have a clear background about what are those terms indicating with reference to concrete payments or a rigid payment. So yeah, it is a very beautiful picture of Mumbai Pune Expressway. I hope some of you must have visited this expressway. This is a complete concrete road, and as you can read the saying out over there, that good roads are considered to be asset and bad roads are a debt for a nation. So obviously, when we are investing a huge amount of crores of rupees in construction of highways, it is again our responsibility to maintain those roads in a required serviceable condition. And if you are not in a position to maintain those roads in a required serviceable condition, then again it becomes a burden or a liability for the nation. So due importance has to be given to maintenance as well, not only the construction. So this topic of payment evaluation, basically it is a part of asset management system, we can say. If we broadly try to look out what is asset management system, obviously this asset management system diagram is with reference to the transport infrastructure facilities. Okay, it might not include other components of infrastructure, but mainly I'm focusing on a transport infrastructure facilities. So with reference to that, if we just try to see this diagram of asset management, there are different components which includes tunnel management, bridge management, road furniture management, winter management. Specifically in case of regions where there is a heavy snowfall in winter seasons, you require a spatial management system and skills to clear off that snow so that the traffic may not be stopped for a longer duration. And one component that you can see is a payment management system. Uh, I'm just trying to open the pointer. Is it visible? Red pointer, is it visible? Any one of you can just verify. Okay. So payment management system is one component of asset management, and under that payment management, one part is your payment evaluation. Okay, so payment evaluation is again very important component of a payment management system. So briefly, we will just see what is the history of payment management system. So this technique or this system basically was evolved in 1960s, late 1960s, when it was observed that number of road failures were there in countries like US and Canada, which were having very good design methodologies for road construction. But even then, they were facing various issues related to payment development, payment failures. So looking to those aspects, they had invested a huge amount of almost $27 million in one project, which they titled as ASHO Road Test, that is American Association State Highway Officials Road Test, where they had conducted a test track which consisted of flexible as well as rigid payments both, and then they constructed these payments with different types of materials and mixes in different sections. And then over a period of time, almost for 9 to 10 years, they have collected the data related to the failures, the distresses that take place on the road surface with time, with age of the payment and other parameters, and then they try to analyze. And that is how the evolvement of payment management system was done. What is the benefit of PMS? So I will just quickly go through these parts. So if we talk about payment management system, see, as the title is clear that we are supposed to manage our payments. So when we say manage, basically we are more focusing towards maintaining or managing the maintenance of your payments. So it gives you answers to various questions like what is the need, why you want to go for a PMS. So the answer can be that looking to the condition, you may say that your road is not in a serviceable condition, and that's why I want to go for the maintenance of the payment. Second question comes, how much money will you require? Third is, let us say you are not having, you require X amount of money and you have only X minus N amount of money available with you. Then the third question is that how to optimally use that available resources. So that can also be an answer which can be obtained from this properly designed payment management system. Next set of questions can be like, what is the best time when you should apply some sort of maintenance to your payment? Next is what kind of treatment you will be using for a particular type of a failure, and what strategy should you follow. So with reference to these three questions, I would just like to explain through this simple figure. As you can see here, green line indicates that if you are doing a timely maintenance, then the payment condition is in a good state, okay, and over a longer period of the time. But if you do not do anything, then the red line you can see the deterioration of payment from very good condition to very poor can be seen drastically. and then at a particular point of time you will require a major rehabilitation. So the maintenance cost will be more after a few years if you are not investing at a regular interval. So that is one thing. So that's why you have to be very much careful that what is the correct time to do that maintenance. Then if we talk about treatment, so these are four different types of treatments generally available: routine, preventive, rehabilitation, and construction. Obviously, as you start from top to bottom, the type of treatment that we are giving is of a high quality, and the cost of maintenance is also going to be more as you go from top to bottom. Obviously, reconstruction means your payment is completely failed and you have to reconstruct the payment. So that is your second point, that you have to decide what kind of treatment is to be applied very wisely. And the third comes as a strategy. So in this also we have generally two strategies. Either you go for a fixed maintenance, that is you schedule it at every 3 years, 2 years, and you carry out an overlay on the top of existing road. Second, maybe a condition response. You carry out a proper evaluation by using various evaluation techniques. You collect the data for distresses, and then you decide the type of treatment based on the condition of your existing payment. So that can be the strategy that you may like to adopt, any one of that. And similarly, if we talk about with reference to the economic parameters, so NPV is net present value. So that is one economic indicator, like what will be the maximum return if you are investing something. Obviously, anyone who is investing a huge amount of money will expect a good amount of returns from that particular investment. So similarly, here also, if you are having 2-3 options for treatment, we generally have a strategy to take the one which is going to give you the best return from your investment. At the same time, the second strategy can be minimize your cost to a target IRI. IRI is basically a roughness index, that is International Roughness Index, which is one sort of parameter to measure the road unevenness. Okay, and the unit for IRI is meters per kilometer. That is what is the total amount of unevenness in meters per kilometer of your road length. So if you go for second strategy, let us say your existing IRI is 4.5. So now you have two options. One is you maximize NPV. So in maximizing NPV, it will select any one option where your IRI will be fixed at 2.5. That is the best possible. Okay, but obviously the cost also will be high. But if you go with second option, that is minimize the cost to target IRI, then in that case you can fix your IRI. If my current IRI is 4.5, I want to target it only up to 3.5. I don't want to go lower than that. So then accordingly it will give you the option that this is the maintenance option, which will give you a IRI of 3.5, and obviously the cost of investment is also going to be less. So that is how you have to decide on the different strategies, and this is nothing but it is a part of your PMS, payment management system. Then next part will be like what will be the short-term and long-term performance of your network, so that things can also be analyzed from a good PMS. And the last will be what are the benefits as a user, as a manager, like the one who is investing the money in your road maintenances, benefits to various stakeholders. And obviously it should be in a simple language, so that basically politician is the person who is going to give you the funds finally. It is in his hand. Okay, so he should also be able to understand the things very simply, so that he can take a fast decision whether to invest or not. So such things can also be managed with the help of a good PMS. So that is what is the background of payment management system. So we can have so many things done if you have a good PMS created for your road networks. If we talk about the activities, so this is a set of the activities which can be performed by a PMS. The first phase includes planning, design, and construction, and the second phase includes maintenance, payment evaluation, and research. So obviously, when we gather a huge amount of data at the time of evaluation, we can use that data for the research purposes. Okay, we can develop various models which will help you in predicting the distresses in future. We can also have models related to cost, that what is the total cost over a period of 10 years required to maintain the road in a particular serviceable condition, and so on. The same thing is presented in this figure. I will just skip this. See, the presentation is too long, so I will be talking only few things in detail which I require is important. Otherwise, we will just have a touch and we will be moving on to the next part. So now coming to the main content of the presentation. So having this background of payment management system, now we are going to talk about rigid payments and the payment evaluation techniques. So in first few slides, we are going to just have a highlight of what are the available IRC guidelines for rigid payments. So those who are dealing with concrete payments, at least they should be aware about these different IRC guidelines which are available. IRC is Indian Rules Congress. Then we are going to have a brief introduction about rigid payment, types of rigid payment, types and causes of distresses in a rigid payment. Distresses are basically the failures. And then we are going to talk in detail about the different evaluation techniques that are available. Obviously, many things are not currently in use in our country, but in foreign countries, they are already using different equipments and techniques for evaluating the payments. So that also we are going to understand. Okay, before I just go, let me just make a simple thing clear. Payment evaluation is basically we are trying to evaluate the condition of existing payment, and we are going to trying to gather some information related to various failures or deflection of a payment and so on, so that once you have that information, based on that you can select a correct and appropriate treatment or maintenance option for that particular payment. So under techniques, we'll be having these three categories. The first is various distress evaluation techniques. Distress means these are different types of surface failures, you can say. Second is a functional evaluation. So functional evaluation, basically, it includes the techniques to measure the roughness, skid resistance, and other functional failures. Okay, so which fails your payment functionally. Like whenever we talk about failure of a payment, generally we have two types of failure. One, we call it as a functional and structural. So functional means your payment is not in a position to provide you a good riding quality, a smooth riding surface. It is more skiddy, slippery, and so on. So when it fails in those functional conditions, we say that it is functional failure. And for that, you require a functional evaluation to find out that what are the actual reasons of this functional failure. And similarly, the second part is a structural failure. So structural means it is not in a position to transfer the loads of your vehicles to the lower layers. See, the main and important requirement of a payment as a structural parameter is to transfer the loads to the lower layers. Only then your payment can sustain. Otherwise, it will start developing the cracks and faults, etc. Will be seen if your payment is not able to transfer the loads. Okay, so to evaluate that whether your payment is fulfilling the structural requirements or not, we go for the structural evaluation. So structural evaluation, for that we have a specific IRC code, that is IRC 117/2015. So we will try to see at least few things from that code, depending upon the availability of the time. So this is the first list of the codes which are relevant to the design of concrete payments. I have just prepared it into three categories. One is for design, second is for maintenance, and the third one is for construction. So these are different codes for design of concrete payments. Obviously, there can be different components of a concrete payment which can be used, can be designed using these IRC codes. So here IRC 58/2015, that is the code which we generally use for designing the plain jointed rigid payments for highways. Then IRC codes for construction. So this is again a long list of different codes which are available, giving you the information related to the construction of the payments, that is concrete payments. And the third part is the maintenance of the payments. So in this, I was talking about IRC 117, which talks about various structural evaluation guidelines using falling weight deflectometer. So falling weight deflectometer is one latest equipment which is used in order to measure the deflections on your concrete payment. And based on that, we can have an idea about the remaining service life of your payment, whether it is in a condition of transferring the loads properly or not, whether there is some voids formation in your concrete payment or not, and so on. kind of analysis can be done using this FWT. So that also we are going to talk at a later stage. Now, coming to the rigid payment, so I will not be taking much time on this introductory slides because it is already known to most of us. So basically, it has a topmost important layer, the first layer, which is of concrete payment, because it is having a very high flexural strength, and even though a load comes, it is not going to deflect as in case of a flexible payment, and that's why we call it as a rigid payment. Okay. In the diagram, you can see the basic structure of a rigid payment, which has number of layers below the concrete payment. If you see the important components, so here I would just like to mention about few important components of rigid payment. One is dowel bars. So dowel bars are generally provided across the transverse joint, and they are one of the load transfer devices which are used. So whenever a vehicle load comes across this joint, because of the dowel bar, the wheel load from one slab may be transferred to another slab without having any cracks or defaults at your joints. So for that, we have this dowel bars functional provided at a transverse joint. Similarly, along the longitudinal joint, we are having a tie bars. So more or less similar function we have for tie bars also. Okay, the other components are already known, so we are not going in much detail. So these two things, why I'm focusing on dowel bars and tie bars is because we are going to talk about this at a later stage in under payment evaluation techniques also. Okay. I was talking about load transfer mechanisms. As I told that dowel bars and tie bars is one form of load transfer mechanism that we have in concrete payments. Along with that, there is an aggregate interlock also. So if you are designing a low volume roads concrete payment, you may not require dowel bars or tie bar provision. In that case, aggregate itself will have a good interlocking, and they will be providing you the load transfer mechanism in your concrete payments. There are many factors which affects this load transfer mechanism. So when we'll be talking about payment evaluation techniques, we are also going to talk about this failure of load mechanism technique, like when we can say that your payment is not effectively transferring the load. So there can be many reasons. It is because of the failure of dowel bar, because of the rusting of your dowel bar or tie bar, because of dispositioning of dowel bar, and so on. So that we will discuss again at a later stage. Then these are four types of rigid payments. Again, mostly we must be aware about it. Just to have a quick difference between the four. The first one is a plain concrete, no reinforcement is provided. Second one is with reinforced. Third is continuously reinforced, so no joints are there in between. And the fourth one is a pre-stressed concrete payment. As you move from top to bottom, the requirement of a thickness can be reduced for the same amount of loading and other conditions, because the strength of the payment is increasing as compared to first category to the last category. CRCP, that is continuously concrete reinforced payment, and pre-stressed concrete payments are comparatively a new technique, we can say, in our country. Obviously, people have started experimenting these two types of payments also, but the most common type of payment that we have is JRCP, that is second number, jointed reinforced concrete payments. So this is just an overview of JPCP with the different components. We have longitudinal joints, transverse joints, along with tie bars and dowel bars. Similarly, this is JRCP. So here we have a wire mesh additionally placed on the surface. The advantage of this is that you can increase the span of your joint. See, basically in concrete pavement, joints are considered to be the weakest one. Okay, so our aim in design should be that as far as possible, we should avoid the joints. So if you are in a position to expand this spacing by providing the reinforcement, then that has to be done so that you will have less number of joints, because joints is a place from where the water entry will start penetrating inside your pavement, and then slowly and gradually it will result in various distresses or failures in your pavement. So this is your JRCP. So this helps you in extending your joint spacing. At the same time, it will hold your local shrinkage cracks of your pavement, and it will control that cracking part also. Then this is CRCP, that is continuously. So as you can see here, no joints are there. Continuous reinforcement is provided in the concrete pavements. Then we have the fourth category, that is pre-stressed concrete pavements. Okay, then joints. So as I told, that these are the basically discontinuities that we provide in the concrete pavement, because it is if you are going for CRCP only, then we don't have any discontinuities. But in case of JPCP and JRCP, we have joints at a regular intervals, and there can be transverse joints as well as a longitudinal joints, as I have already shown you. And transverse joints can further be designed as either a contraction joint or an expansion joint. So basically, expansion and contraction joint is provided in order to cater the variation in the stresses because of temperature variations. Okay, and construction joint is a joint which we generally provide at the end of your day's work. So if you are unable to complete the work, then on the next day when you want to continue, we can continue from the same joint, that is your construction joint. So special type of arrangements are available how to provide those joints, but we are not going in details about that right now. So this is your location of joints or discontinuities that we have in our concrete pavements. Okay, actually the provision of joints, so that also we are using a special machine to cut the joint. So once you lay the concrete, after it has initially set, maybe after 6 to 8 hours of your laying, we just cut the joints, and the depth of that joints should also be specific, and the regular the intervals or the spacing between the joints also should be as per the design. Then we come to the different types of distresses and rigid pavement. So this is again important to know, because unless and until you are aware about different types of distresses, when you go for pavement evaluation, you will not have an idea that what this distress is and what can be a best treatment for this particular distress. So distresses, or we can say failures in rigid pavement. So I had already discussed you what is a structural failure and what is a functional failure. So based on that guidelines, we can have this classification of distresses, that is cracking, surface defects. Surface defects means it is going to be only on the surface. It has not penetrated inside your depth of the pavement. So that is surface defects. Then joint defects. So the failures or the defects that we observe or we find near the joints, it may be a transverse joint or a longitudinal joint, but such kind of defects, we call it as a joint defects. And there are a few other miscellaneous defects which don't fall under the previous three categories. So if we just see the classification under cracking, again, we can have two divisions as per structural distress and a functional distress. As I told, structural distress means it is not going to allow proper load transmission to the lower layers, and because of that, either the reason may be heavy deflection may be there, or a huge crack is there in your pavement, and because of that the load is not being transferred. So this can be the various structural crackings observed in a concrete pavement, that is transverse, longitudinal, diagonal, corner, etc. And in this side, on the other side, if we talk about functional distresses, so this will only affect your riding quality or the skid resistance of your pavement. So shrinkage cracks, edge cracks, durability crackings, and so on. So these are a few photographs which gives you an idea about the structural cracking. As I told you, as you can see in the diagram, the depth of cracking is almost more than half of your pavement depth. Okay, if your pavement thickness is D, then more than half of D, the depth will be there of this cracking. So it means that it is almost detached from the other part of the slab, and it is not in a position of transferring the load. So that is called as a structural cracking failures. And these are your functional failures, so which is just going to affect your riding qualities and smoothness of the pavements. Similarly, if we talk about surface defects, so because it is a surface, it means it will be only on the surface and not penetrated inside your pavement. So no structural distresses come under surface defects. All the defects that are there, they come under a category of functional distresses. So there can be small holes, some scaling of a concrete may be taking place, or some deep abrasion must be observed, and polished aggregates. So this can be the types of the functional distresses under surface defects. So here you can see how this polished aggregates look like. So basically, if you have this type of failure on the road, it is going to reduce your skid resistance, and it makes your surface more slippery and skiddy. Okay, so it is risky if you are driving at a higher speed, then to control your vehicle becomes dangerous. So that is how we have this functional disabilities because of these failures. Then the next category is the joint defects. So under joint defect also we have structural and functional distresses. The important structural distress under joint defect is the failure of tie bars or dowel bars. As I was explaining before, that if let us say your dowel bar that you have placed is rusted due to any reason. So gradually after rusting, it might happen that it will not be in a proper position in your concrete, and it will become loose, and it will not be properly transferring your load from one slab to another slab. The second possibility can be your bar might have bent because of overloading, or it might have dislocated from its alignment. So all these reasons are the reasons for improper load transfer, and they come under structural failure, and you need to have some specific measures to improve that load transfer mechanism. So that again we will see in coming slides that what are the options available, how to rectify those things. And then is a functional distress under joint defects. So again, spalling of joints can be there. Generally, the joints we fill the filler material, and on the top of that we seal it with a special sealant which is readily available in the market. So what happens is gradually when the traffic is continuously moving, that sealant also gets abrased, and because of that it will start coming out, and the joint becomes open up. So that we call it as a sealant loss or filler loss, and because of that gradually other failures may take place in your payments. And the last one is a faulting. So faulting is the level difference that we have near the joints. So that is again because one of the reason may be that your dowel bar or a tie bar is not in a proper position, and because of that, that joint has become weak. And when the load comes, because of that unequal distribution of load, one of the slab gets settled down, and the other slab remains in its intact position. So that we call it as a faulting or level differences. So these are your joint defects, and in other miscellaneous defects under structural we have pumping. I will just show you the pumping also in the next photograph. And under functional we have blow-ups, patch, or drop-off. So here are some defects, as you can see: spelling, then faulting, that is the level difference. Pumping is that from the joints the water has ingressed from top to bottom, or from bottom it is coming out, and when it comes out it also brings a fine materials from the lower layers, and it makes your surface weak, and then gradually the cracks starts take from that particular position. So that is the after effects of pumping, we can say. Then in this diagram, you can see the tie bar failure. So you can see the bar is completely broken up. The slab has been settled down. So here we have a huge amount of level difference between the two slabs, and you can also observe the pumping also. Okay, so through this gap, the water ingression has taken place, and because of that, it results in various other failures in your payment. And this is rusting of dowel bar. So that is also one failure. Initially, it starts with rusting, and then as I told, when the load continues to move on such rusted dowel bars, finally it will result in breaking of a dowel bar or disalignment of a dowel bars. So all these things has to be evaluated when we are going for a payment evaluation. Okay, and there are different techniques available to observe and identify such kind of failures in your payment. So what are the common causes? So again, I will not go in much details about this. This is mostly known. The main can be the traffic, overloading of your payment, environmental factors, then the material that we are using is not of a good quality, and obviously some lack in your design. Okay, you have not designed the required thickness, or the spacing is not proper, dowel bar diameter is not proper, spacing of your dowel bar is not done properly, or tie bar spacing is not done properly. When you are providing a reinforcement in JRCP, then the spacing of horizontal and vertical that bars should also be designed. So if that spacing is also not proper in your wire mesh, then that also results in a huge cracks formation on your pavement surface and so on. So there are many reasons why such kind of distresses occur. So whenever we are going for payment evaluation, at that time we are also supposed to try to find out that what can be the possible reason of this failure. One more common factor which is observed in payment failures is the time of sawing. I was discussing just before a few slides that for sawing or for giving the joints, we use a saw cutter, and we cut the slab after initial period of setting. So generally, if you delay it after 8 to 10 hours of concrete laying, and then you go for cutting of your joints, or if you go for cutting of a slabs before, like in the initial 2 to 4 hours, then so in both the cases, whether it is before this actual time or if it is after the actual time, it is going to be dangerous for your payment. Okay, so if you go after 6 to 8 hours, then your payment has become too hard, and then it will start showing the cracks. Okay, as you try to cut the payment. Okay, so too late will result in cracking, and if you go for too early, then because it is not achieved to its initial strength, it will start reveling. Reveling means as you cut the payment, the aggregates which are in that alignment will start coming out. Okay, and that will that is called as a reveling of a payment. So that window of cutting the joints has to be properly maintained. And that is the common reason which is observed for various distresses, because as I told, that joints in a concrete pavement is the weakest portion. If you handle the joints properly, then mostly many things can be handled in your concrete pavement. Okay, so now coming to the concrete pavement evaluation techniques or pavement evaluation techniques. So briefly, I will first discuss about what are the steps. Like for example, let us say you are given a stretch of 100 kilometers of a particular complete state highway network, and you are asked to conduct a payment evaluation for that particular road network as a highway engineer. So there is a proper procedure that has to be followed, and that sequential steps we are just going to discuss over here. So the first thing that comes is a historical data collection. Next is a second step is initial site visit and assessment. Then field testing activities, laboratory materials characterization, data analysis, and final field evaluation report. So we are just going to see one by one what are the things that has to be gathered while following this steps of payment evaluation. So when we talk about historical data, it is very important to get or gather the information about the history of your payment. Okay, history, when I say, it starts from your original design, then it starts from intermediate maintenance if it has been provided. If you have done any payment evaluation before, then that records, that details also has to be collected. It also includes the collection of the information about the lower layers, like your granular layers as well as your soil layer on which your payment is resting. Then it also includes gathering information about various environmental factors, traffic parameters, and other payment management reports if you have prepared for that particular network. So basically, we can say that this is a secondary data that can be collected from the respective offices or the respective persons in that office. Once you have that initial history, the second step comes as an initial site visit and then assessment. So here in this step, we are actually not making any physical measurement of any distresses, or any evaluation is not being done. It is just an initial site inspection. So our purpose of this step is that once we collect the information, we can decide on what kind of evaluation is required. See, because as we have seen, there can be two evaluations. One is functional and the second one is structural. From this particular step, if you come to know that the failures is only on the surfaces and it has not penetrated throughout the depth of your payment, then there might not be a need of a structural evaluation. Only functional evaluation will fulfill your purpose, and based on functional evaluation, you can recommend the maintenance strategies. Okay, but if you find in this stage that your payment is showing a huge amount of cracks at various locations, it is completely detached, some part of a portion of a complete payment, it is not, the load transfer mechanism is not proper, like you can physically see that there is a settlement near the joints, then such parameters can be reported in this step, and then this thing leads to requirement of a structural evaluation. So the decision whether both are required or only one is required will be based on the outputs of this second step, that is initial site visit and assessment. So you have to gather the information on different distresses, roughness, surface friction, condition, but this all are just a visual inspection, okay, through a visual inspection. So obviously a trained or a skilled person is required, so that he already has an idea about what are the different types of distresses that can be there, and is able to identify different distresses on a road. So such kind of skilled persons are required for this particular activity. Then comes the field testing. So when we talk about field testing, it now actually includes your use of different payment evaluation techniques. So as you can see here, I have mentioned 4 points. The first one is distress and drainage survey and surface characteristics testing. So these two are the part of your functional evaluation. And third and fourth, that is non-destructive testing and field sampling and testing. So this last two are a part of your structural evaluation techniques. So under this step, now we have to use some payment evaluation techniques in order to measure and quantify the different types of distresses or failures. It may be functional, it may be structural. So we are going to discuss this step number 3, that what are the different techniques available under all the 4 categories at a later stage. Okay. Then coming to the 4th step. So now what happens is, when you are going for payment evaluation under step 3, obviously you are also collecting some sort of samples from a specific location. For example, let us say you had observed that there is a huge porthole or there is a huge amount of cracking, a corner crack is observed on a particular location. So when you go for payment evaluation in step number 3, you carry tools and accessories with you in order to collect a core. Generally, we use a core cutting machine. You must have seen a core cutting machine, where you can directly collect a undisturbed sample of a concrete core from the road, and that core is then brought to the laboratory for testing various parameters. So you can have an estimate of concrete strength, the stiffness of the concrete. Then you can also have the idea about alkali silica reactivity. So that is basically affecting your durability of the concrete. Then you can also go for a petrographic testing, which is basically a micro level testing of your concrete in order to understand what kind of reactions are taking place between different materials or different ingredients of payment, and how it is affecting your payment behavior. So that is your petrographic testing. Generally, we take a very small amount of sample and we go for SEM analysis. Then we can also find the resilient modulus of the core that you have brought from the field. And you can also collect some samples for the lower layers, that is granular layers, and you can go for measurement of gradation, density, etc. So once we have evaluation of this material or laboratory testing, we can get an idea and we can compare these results with your actual design. For example, initially you had used a M40 grade of concrete at the time of design. So once you find out the strength after, let us say, 6 years or 7 years of construction, you are getting a core, and then you are trying to find out the strength. So you can compare the results, that initially what was the value, and now after 6 years and 7 years of age, what is the current value of your payment. And based on that, finally you can make your decisions about the maintenance provisions. So that is your step number 4, laboratory material characterization. Again, as I told, that it is not compulsory that for all the projects you require this step. It depends upon the condition of your road. It might happen that your road is good enough, you do not require any laboratory material characterization. Lecture challenge. Next is data analysis. So now once we collect the information in step number 3, step number 4, finally comes a data analysis part. So in data analysis, what we do is in the first phase, when you collect various functional distress, we have to derive different types of payment condition indices from that. Payment condition index means it will give you an idea about the current condition of a payment, whether it is good, fair, poor, and so on. Okay, so that is one form of doing the analysis, that whatever functional information you are collecting, you convert it in terms of condition index, and that condition index will give you an idea, and based on that condition index, you decide your maintenance priority. Second type of analysis might include preparing the plots. For example, let us say you have made a measurement of a roughness along a stretch of, let us say, 15 kilometers. So at every meter, what is the variation in the roughness that can be plotted? So on x-axis, you take distance. On y-axis, you take the roughness value, and then you have a plot. So that by looking to that graph itself, you can find out which is the place where you are having a maximum roughness, and in that section only you require the maintenance. So that is such kind of plots can be made for different parameters, like if you are measuring noise, if you are measuring friction, and so on. Then the third kind of analysis is the NDT results. Like if you are using a falling weight deflectometer, as I discussed in the earlier slides, that FWD is used for measuring the deflection of your concrete pavements. So you can have a plot of that deflection measurements also, like along the distance, what are the deflection values. Similarly, we use the deflection values for back calculating the layer properties. It means that if you are having a deflection value of a concrete pavement at a regular interval, then you can use that values for calculating the strength, the resilient modulus, etc. So those details, those calculations are given in IRC 117, which I was talking initially. So by using that back calculation guidelines, you can have an idea about the parameters of the concrete, that what are they in a current condition, and based on that you can further evaluate the remaining life of your pavement. Okay, so initially let us say you had designed this concrete pavement for 25 years, 30 years, but suddenly let us say in between 3-4 years there was a huge traffic on that particular pavement which was beyond your design loads. So it might have damaged your pavement to a quite a bit extent. So when you go for measurements of deflection and you try to back calculate, you come to know that instead of 30 years, the remaining life is only 12 years, 15 years, or 18 years. Okay, so that is how from these parameters you can have an idea about that. Similarly, in analysis, you can also try to find out the load transfer capabilities. As I told, that we are using tie bars, dowel bars for load transfer mechanism. So whether they are properly transferring that or not, that can be analyzed in terms of values, and that can be done again using FWD, which we'll be discussing under IRC 117 at a later stage. So this all types of calculation becomes the part of your data analysis, and depending upon your functional evaluation and structural evaluation, there can be different analysis results, which helps a person to take a correct decision about the maintenance requirements. Here I can just give you some trigger values. For example, I will just take one example. Let us say you are having 3 categories of concrete payments. One is with high traffic, that is ADT, average daily traffic, more than 10,000. Second is a medium category of road where the traffic is between 3,000 to 10,000. And the third is a low category in terms of traffic where the average daily traffic is less than 3,000. So this particular table, it comes from American Concrete Association, where they have given some trigger values and a limit value. Trigger means, for example, if I read one distress, let us say the corner breaks. So here they are saying a percentage of joints, corner breaks. So the trigger value for medium category of road is 1.5. It means as soon as it reaches to 1.5% corner breaks are observed, you have to take some maintenance action. Okay, so that is a trigger value. And limit value is that you may extend your maintenance plan till that value reaches to 10%. Okay, beyond that, it will require a reconstruction. It may require a reconstruction. Okay, so similarly, in the complete table, the first value is a trigger value. You can say it is an alarming value. Okay, अगर ये value पहुंचती है, so that should be an alarm for a highway engineer that now you need to take some action. But still, if you want that I want to sleep, you can sleep up to a limit value. ठीक है, so 2 से लेके 30 तक you can sit idle, and as soon as it triggers 30, then it is going to be a major maintenance cost or investment. So that is how for different categories of roads. You can see here JPCP के लिए है, JRCP के लिए है, and similarly CRCP के लिए भी they have given the trigger values. So this helps you that when you need to take a action with reference to a particular particular failure, and that should be a part of your data analysis. The last and the final step of payment evaluation is the final field evaluation report. So obviously, whatever steps we have followed from 1 to 5, that has to be reported in proper report form, and then that report is submitted to the authority for funding, because ultimate aim is that you want money so that with the help of that money we can maintain our roads in a better condition. So unless and until your reporting is very strong, very simple, and in a very understandable form, your project proposal might not be accepted. Okay, so that report writing is again a very is a unique art that all of you should have, so that you can present the work that you have done in collecting the data and doing the data analysis. That is what is your last step. Okay, so this was what we were discussing about what should be the sequence of payment evaluation. Now we will talk about the different evaluation techniques that are available in the current stage for different purposes. So coming back to step number 3, if you remember, I had listed these 3 points that under payment evaluation, we have 3 different types of evaluation that generally calls for. The first is a distress evaluation, second one is a functional evaluation, and the third one is a structural evaluation. Again, I am repeating, it is not necessary that for your section you require all the 3. Okay, you have to decide this based on your step number 2, that is initial site inspection. You have to decide whether 1 and 2 is sufficient or 1, 2, and 3 all are required. Because obviously, as you go for all the 3 types of evaluation, the cost of your project is also going to increase. You require manpower, you require costly equipments in order to do the evaluation, and so on. So let us talk about the common evaluation procedures. So what are the parameters that we measure under the payment evaluation for a rigid payment? Okay, we are just talking about rigid payment. So the first category of evaluation procedures that comes is a distress evaluation. So here we are measuring only those distresses which are visible on the surface of a payment. Okay, they are not penetrated throughout the depth. They are visible on a surface of a payment. Second is functional evaluation. So functional evaluation are those parameters which affects your riding quality, your safety of the payment, and so on. So it includes your roughness values, skid resistance, then faulting survey, then payment noise. You must be aware that as compared to flexible payments, rigid payments make more noise. If you are traveling on Vadodara Ahmedabad Expressway, then on either side near the toll booth, we are having almost 200 to 300 meter length section of concrete payments. So you will observe and you will feel that there is more noise when you drive at a faster speed on the concrete roads. So that also is a parameter which can be measured and which can be controlled. Okay, but it comes under a functional evaluation because it is not damaging your payment, but it is damaging your wheels. Okay, it is affecting your vehicle. And obviously the comfort level of a person is also being hampered because of that noise. And then is the drainage. So these are the surveys or parameters which comes under the functional evaluation. The next one is a structural evaluation. So structural evaluation, it includes the first and foremost is a deflection measurement. So structural means it is not able to transfer the load to the lower layers. This means your payment is failed. So now whether you have to go for a reconstruction or just one step above reconstruction, that is rehabilitation, is going to serve your purpose, that decision we have to take. Okay, because if you remember, there are four options. One was routine maintenance, second was preventive maintenance, third was rehabilitation, and fourth was reconstruction. So if there is a need of a structural evaluation, it means that you cannot go for step number 1 and step number 2. They are no more useful. You have to make a decision either from rehabilitation or reconstruction. That's all. Only two options are available to overcome this structural failure of your payments. So under that, we go for deflection measurement. We measure the deflection on the road. Then we go for core testing. As I told, that we take cores at a regular interval, or wherever you feel that there is some sort of damage in your payment. Then there can be another technique which we call it as a GPR, that is ground penetrating radar. So this is all again a non-destructive testing. Core is a destructive method. Number one, that is deflection testing by using falling weight deflectometer, and number three, these are non-destructive techniques. The fourth one is a slab curvature measurement. So basically, this phenomena occurs because of temperature changes. Okay, concrete pavement is very much susceptible to temperature variations. Even if during daytime and nighttime the temperature difference is high, you will find that there are huge amount of warping stresses which are developed in your pavement, and that will result in curling or wrapping of your pavement, and that is ultimately results in crackings. And these cracks are not a normal crack, but they are a structural cracks. So we need to have observation of this curvature also. If you feel that the values of slab curvatures are very high, then you need to provide some sort of maintenance so that that can be reduced. And the last one is a steel corrosion testing. So this is generally done in order to find out whether your reinforcement or tie bars or dowel bars are corroded or not. If they are corroded, then again you have to replace them. And for replacing, we have different retrofitting methods available which can be used for that purpose. So we are just going to see one by one about all these three and what are the different techniques and equipments available, that also we are going to discuss. Okay, so the first one is a distress evaluation. So as I told that these are the surface defects which are seen on the surface visibly without any measurements or equipments. Okay, so we try to find out what are the quantities and the severities of that distresses. Severities means whether it is like low severity, medium severity, or high severity. For example, if I take a simple example of a shrinkage crack, you are observing one particular crack on a road surface. So what we do is we try to find out the length and the width of the crack, and based on that we may define the severity levels, whether it is low, medium, or high, and then we can categorize under that particular category like that. Then based on your survey, we can have different groups. For example, let us say कि आपका पूरा 10 kilometer का section you have divided into 10 sections, each of 1 kilometer. So we try to group the sections with similar kind of defects, so that similar kind of maintenance can be provided on those sections. So that can be done. Then we also try to find out the causes. I told previously also that whenever we go for evaluation, our one aim should always be to find out the reason that why this would have happened, so that at least next time we can improve our design or wherever the fault is. And then we may go for additional tests if required. So once you complete this step, it will then be clear whether you have to go for functional and structural both or any one of them. And then we can decide the potential treatment alternatives depending upon the requirement. Now, how to carry out this? So there can be different methods. The first method is a very simple manual or a videographic method. So in manual method, what we do is a team of 4-5 observers goes on a payment, and we divide the payment into small sections so that it is easy to collect the data, and then that information can be collected manually. Okay. And we have standard formats. Sorry, the format is not much clear, but such kind of standard formats are available. So you can record the values at every 1 kilometer. Whatever defect you observe, that can be recorded at every kilometer, and you can have different sheets for 1 kilometer each. So अगर 10 kilometer का है, so there can be a 10 sheets for that evaluation survey. Okay, so these are some formats for recording the different types of failures. So here you can see type of defect, severity, then proposed treatment for that particular failure, and so on. This is again one more format where the list of distresses is given, and you have to just put a tick mark along with the chainage. So you have to write the chainage, and if you observe that particular failure at that particular chainage, then you can put a tick mark, or you can write some sort of description for that particular distress. So such kind of formats can be prepared, or some standard references can be used to collect this information. The second method of collecting this is by using an automated distress survey. So automated distress survey, basically these are the vehicles which are equipped with number of sensors, and they can be moved at a regular speed of maybe 30, 40 or 50 kilometers per hour. And because with the help of that different sensors, you can capture different types of distresses, you can collect the images of the road surface, and so on. And then that images can be processed in order to get the values of different failures or distresses. So that is your automatic survey methods. So here you can see here, this is there can be two methods. One is a complete automated data processing. So in complete automated, what happens is you are collecting a data using that automated vehicle, and you also have a software along with that vehicle. So ultimately, for example, let us say you are capturing the images. So in that particular image, whatever amount of cracking or leveling is there, that value will directly be available with you, and then you can use that value for making other decisions related to the treatments required. So that is your complete automated processing. And the second type of system is a semi-automated data processing, where you get only the images, you only get the captured images, and then manually you have to write the algorithms, you have to use various image processing techniques, and using that you can calculate the values of the different distresses that are observed on your surface. So this is one automated survey vehicle. This is a typical vehicle which looks like this. Here you can see we have a bump integrator which measures your roughness over here. This is your ground penetrating radar GPR, which is installed in the front. So it is going to capture and give you the information about the structure of the pavement below the road surface. Okay, then you have various cameras. So this cameras, again, it gives or it captures the traffic that is moving around your survey vehicle, and then you can calculate the total traffic also with the help of this videos that has been captured through these cameras. Then here GPS antenna is there, so it will give you the location of each and every point with reference to the data that you are collecting. So then this is a laser crack measurement system, LCMS. So it is a very high quality camera which will capture the pictures at regular intervals. Okay, as you move continuously with few overlap, it will keep on capturing the images, and then that images can be processed using various image processing technique, and you can get the values of your cracks in terms of percentages and so on. So this is a multi equipped automated vehicle which can be used for distress measurements. Obviously, it is costly affair, and you require a specific skill also in order to interpret the results that you get from this system. Then comes is that what to do with that. So once you get that information, we have to reflect, or we have to convert in terms of some payment condition indices, as I was discussing earlier. So we may have IRC SP83, they have given 6 level of distress rating starting from 0 to 5. So depending upon your measurements, you can categorize that particular road section as an excellent road condition or a very poor road condition. And accordingly, you can decide the maintenance requirements for that particular road section. Other than that, there are other methods also in terms of which we can identify or we can calculate our payment condition indices for the measured data. So the codes or the reports which are mentioned over here, they can be used in order to express your values or ratings in terms of PSI or individual distress index or PSR, that is payment serviceability rating, and so on. Okay, so different codes, different countries, they have their own methods of representing the data of payment condition, and then based on that they have the selection of the maintenance requirements. So that is about the first phase. We can have just 1 minute or a half a minute break if anyone wants to ask anything so far. I hope I'm not going too fast, because there are many things that I just want to cover. Okay, fine. We may continue. We can take up the things at the end. Then moving forward, the next part of evaluation that comes is the functional evaluation. So in this, we are going to see what are the equipments and techniques available for measuring the functional failures of your rigid payments or concrete payments. So the first one that comes over here is a roughness. In India, we are having a fifth wheel bump integrator. Mostly, many of us, we use that equipment in order to measure the roughness on the road surfaces. And IRC SP16, they have given the guidelines that depending upon the value of roughness, what will be the category of your payment. Okay, so that is one thing. In this image, you can see this is again an image from one particular paper where they have given different devices which can be used for roughness measurement. So if you see the basic difference between the devices is one is the accuracy. Okay, the accuracy will be different. If you have sufficient budget to purchase a good equipment, maybe you can go with a best equipment which will give you a highest accuracy for measuring the roughnesses. Otherwise, you can go for different devices depending upon your fund availability. So that is one difference in terms of accuracy. Second is with reference to the initial cost of the equipment. Third is some equipments are such which you can attach with a vehicle. You can mount on a vehicle, and at a regular speed of 30 to 40 kilometers per hour, when your vehicle is moving, this instrument will measure the roughnesses. And some instruments are such that you have to operate it manually. So you will have to walk it on the road if you are using that equipment. So it is obviously laborious, it is more time consuming and less accurate. So the decision obviously depends on the resources that you have for your payment evaluation, because it will require a good amount of budget for conducting such kind of evaluations very accurately. Yes, so I was talking about this bump integrator. So this is that equipment which mostly is used in our country. And if we talk about the range, so here if you have that for concrete payment, if your IRI is 3 or less, we can say that it is in good condition. And if it is more than 4, then generally it is considered to be a poor condition of your road. So as soon as your IRI crosses 4, you have to provide some maintenance so that you can again improve the riding quality of your payment. Otherwise, it will keep on deteriorating. Ultimately, it will increase your vehicle operating cost because your tires will be damaged if you travel on a road which is having very high roughness. The discomfort level of the passengers will also increase. It might result to accidents and other issues also. So again, the decision on the type of treatment depends upon the value of IRI that you measure. The second parameter is of skid resistance. So each and every payment should have sufficient amount of skid resistance. Okay, neither it should be too rough nor it should be too smooth. In both the cases, it is dangerous. If it is too smooth, slipping, skidding is going to happen. If it is too rough, then as I told that it will increase your VOC and other discomfort and issues are going to be there. So it is very important to maintain a specific amount of skid resistance required on a pavement. And if we talk about pavement textures, generally depending upon the wavelengths, we have this three category classifications. That is micro texture, macro texture, and mega texture. Okay, and it depends on the wavelength, the length of the wavelength. So if you see, micro is very less, hardly to a length of 0.5 mm, and mega texture is going to be up to 50 centimeter. Okay, if I just try to explain you with this diagram here, you can see micro, then macro, mega, and then comes the roughness. So what roughness we are talking is actually it is more than 50 centimeters. Okay, it is the wavelength more than 50 centimeters. This is up to 50, 5 to 50, and more than 50 becomes your rough. So if your wavelength of that texture is more than 50, it means that you are having a rough pavement, and then according to your IRI value, you have to take a proper measurements. So when we talk about this micro textures or this skid resistance, for that also we have two different techniques available to measure that value. So the first method, which is suggested in IRC 15, is a sand patch method. Okay, so basically what we do is we take a defined and a known quantity of fine standard sand. Okay, and then we have to spread that sand over a road surface. As you can see in the photograph, the person has spread it over the sand. Obviously, if your surface is smooth, then the coverage of that quantity will be more. Okay, it means that this dimension, the diameter will be more if you are having a smooth surface. But if your surface is rough, that what will happen, your sand will get filled up in the pores, in the textures, and the coverage is going to be less. So once you complete this process, the quantity is fixed. Okay, it is X amount of fixed quantity. The volume of the sand is fixed, and that you have to just spread evenly. So once that is done, you have to measure this, and using this equation, you can measure the texture depth. So in this, you can see it is a simple equation: volume of the sand and the diameter of the sand patch circle. So the standard value or the desired value range that is given is 0.65 to 1.25 mm. If it is less than this, then also it is not acceptable. If it is more than this, then also it is not acceptable. I had explained you why, what are the reasons for that. Next comes is a British pendulum tester. So this is again one more equipment which can be used to measure the skid resistance of your pavement. And here the unit is different. Here it is in terms of British pendulum number, and the number ranges from 45 to 55 is the acceptable range. Now how it works is, it is again a simple principle. You can see this pendulum. At the bottom of the pendulum, you are having one rubber pad. Okay, so what we do is we just hold this pendulum and we try to flow it freely. Okay, and it touches your surface, and then along with this pendulum we have this marker. So depending upon the movement of your pendulum, this marker will also move. If your surface is very smooth, then the pendulum will move very freely and you will have a higher value. Sorry, you will have a lower value on the reading. Okay, lower value means it will be in a range of 0 to 20 or 0 to 30. And if it is rough enough, then it will not allow your pendulum to move freely. And in that case, you will have a very high value. That is, your marker will not go to a larger extent, and it will be somewhere around more than 60 to 80. So in both the cases, it is not acceptable. The acceptable range for your pavement in a normal condition is 45 to 55. So that is how a simple test is available to measure the skid resistance. So that can be done at a regular intervals. Okay, like whenever you feel that the surface has become more slippery, you just take any of these two methods and you try to find out the value. And if it is not in the standard acceptable limits, then we have to provide some alternate maintenance in order to improve that. The third equipment which is available over here is a mu meter, mu meter. very commonly known as, and it can be towed with a vehicle. You can move the vehicle at a speed of 50 to 110 kilometers per hour, and accordingly it will give you the value of this skid number, and that number again varies from 36 to 31. So obviously if you are moving at a lower speeds, a higher number is acceptable, but if you are moving at a higher speed, then a lower number value is acceptable, that is 31. So this is a range of acceptable speed number if you do a measurement with the help of mu meter. Next functional fact is a faulting. So faulting I had already explained. It is basically the level difference that we have in two slabs. Okay, we have seen under the distresses. So this is a Georgia fault meter, which is available to measure the amount of level difference. You can see here the person is holding that Georgia fault meter, and two stands are on one side of the slab and the other two footrests are on the other side of the slab, and the unevenness can be measured through a scale which is installed in that particular instrument. So that is a Georgia fault meter. The simple way can be, you just take a simple scale, a plastic scale, you put it on the surface, and then you try to measure the total unevenness between the two slabs with the help of another scale. So that is also going to give you the same thing. The unit is in millimeters. The next important parameter which comes under functional evaluation is noise. So as I told, rigid payments, they are making more noise as compared to flexible payments. So when we talk of noise, there are two categories of noise. One, we call it as a powertrain noise, and the second we call it as a tire payment noise. Powertrain noise is because of the engine, okay, and the exhaust or the emissions that are being made from that vehicle. So that is not in our control, okay, that is in the control of a manufacturer. But the second one, that is tire payment noise, that is in our control. It is basically when your vehicle is moving on a road surface, because of your surface roughness and the rubbing action that takes place between your tire and surface, this noise is being produced, and that noise we have to control, we can control. So for that, you have to first measure the noise, and you have to see whether it is an acceptable limit or not. And if you find that that noise is beyond the acceptable limit, then we may provide some alternate maintenance strategies to reduce that noise. So this is one equipment, onboard sound intensity, OBSI, again designed and developed by Ashto. So this can be used for measuring the road noises. This is a picture here. You can see how it is being attached. So this is attached on a wheel. These are the microphones that are provided. As you can see here, two microphones are provided, and the assembly is attached to the wheel of a vehicle. And then at a normal speed, whatever speed you want to move, you can move the vehicle, and it will keep on recording the noise. And then it can be automatically converted, and you can have a graph in this way. So on x-axis, we are having a distance. On y-axis, we are having the variation of the noises. And then you try to see what is the acceptable limit. Accordingly, you can make your decision whether it is okay or it is making more noise. So acceptable limit is 101 to 102 decibel. If it is more than that, it means you have to provide some arrangement to reduce the noise. So what is that arrangement? One option can be, you can go for diamond grinding. Diamond grinding, basically it is a machine which is available, and it has a diamond grinder fixed in that, and we can provide a grooves on the surface. So when you provide that grooves, what happens is that noise will be absorbed in that grooves, and it will not like it will reduce it in its intensity. Okay, so that is the advantage of diamond grinding. So that can be done if you find that more noises there. Second thing is, you can have a thin concrete overlay on the top of it, so that because of that fresh concrete, already whenever we construct a fresh concrete layer, we provide grooves on the top of that. So that will also absorb your noise and reduce it. The last one under functional is drainage. So I will not talk much about this because this is a very common phenomena, and generally wherever you are constructing payments in the areas where the rainfall is more than 500 mm per year, like that is the amount of rain intensity you are observing, then in those areas you have to be very careful. You may provide a special drainage layer in your payment structure itself, You have to properly design the side drains, open cuts, so that the rainwater gets immediately collected under the side drains and it will not penetrate through your pavement through the joints, because as I told, that joints are the weakest point, and if water accumulates on the surface, then through joints it will start penetrating inside, so that should not happen. This is a standard format you can see here to assess the drainage condition. So this is about side drain condition, then about the shoulders condition, then this is the overall summary whether the drainage is fair, good or very good. Accordingly, you can have your comments on this format. Okay, the last part is the structural evaluation. I think I'm running off the time. I have 15 minutes more, so I will try to complete this, and then we may take up a few questions for discussion. So under deflection, as I told that out of this 5 things, except core testing, all other are non-destructive testing methods. Okay, so we can find out the layer thicknesses using this technique. We can find out the location of reinforcements. We can also find out if there are any voids which are formed under your pavement structure. Then we can find out the deflection, obviously, with the help of this non-destructive testing techniques. You can also find out about the load transfer efficiency of your dowel bars and tie bars, whether they are performing well or not. So all those things. At the same time, you can also have an idea about the remaining service life of your payment with the help of various non-destructive techniques. So let us see what are those. So here is a list. The first one is a falling weight deflectometer. The second one is a ground penetrating radar. Then MIRA, that is MIRA, MIT Scan 2 and MIT Scan T2. What is the basic differences? As you can see here, the measuring capabilities of all the equipments are different. Obviously, the cost is also different. If I talk about this FWD, mostly roughly, if you want to take a standard good company made, then it will cost you around 1 crore, 1 CR, okay, of FWD. And in India, as far as my knowledge is concerned, to the best of my knowledge, I think we are having only 2 or 3 FWDs which are of that accuracy. We have 1 or 2 more, but they are local made. But of this quality and standard, we have only 2 or 3 FWDs in our country, which are being used for the evaluation of concrete pavements. So here, if you see, depending upon the capabilities, we have this equipments. If you want to find out load transfer, FWD can do that for you. If you want to find out the depth of a steel and thickness layer and void detection. So these 2 parameters, it cannot be done by FWD. For that, you have to go for GPR. Void detection can be done by FWD, and structural assessment, that is deflection measurement, can be done by FWD, but that cannot be done by GPR. So if you have both the things, that is FWD and GPR, then you can say that you can completely do your structural evaluation with the help of these 2 equipments. These 2 are sufficient. But to have these 2, it means 1 CR of FWD and almost around 1 CR of GPR with all the attachments. Okay, because in GPR also we have different antennas having different frequency capacity. So if you want to take a best, then the cost will also be accordingly more. So the first one is a deflection measurement. So here, once we get the deflection values of your road surface, what we can get or what we can do with the help of that information. So one is we can get an idea about the variation of the deflections along the length. Second, as I told, that we can have the idea about the material properties by back calculation. The details are given in IRC 117. Third, we can have the idea about the load transfer efficiency, whether they are functioning well near the joints or cracks or not. And fourth, we can also have an idea about voids. If there are any voids in your payments, see, because what will happen if there is any void formation and when a continuous load moves on that particular area, ultimately it is going to break and settle. So before that, you should use some grouting or other techniques so that that voids can be filled up. So for that, you should know what is the location of voids. So that can be done with the help of these deflection measurements once you have it. So FWD is a common equipment, as I told, which is used in India. And this is the code IRC 117, which gives you a detailed guidelines. And all these 4 parameters that I mentioned over here, they have explained very well with examples that how to use that code for getting all these values. Second is a code testing. So this is NDT. Sorry, this is not NDT. This is a destructive testing method. So we take a course in the area where you find that the payment slab is not in a good functional or structural condition. With the help of core cutting, we can take the codes, and then this can be tested in the laboratory for different types of parameters like strength, modulus, elasticity. You may even go for petrographic testing, that is micro level testing of the concrete, in order to have an idea about the different chemical reactions that are taking place, and because of which the durability is getting affected. So that is your code testing. Third is the GPR. So as I told that different forms of GPRs are available. Different attachments are there in the form of antennas, and with the help of GPRs you can get the information below the road surface, okay, without digging or without any damage to your payment structure. So here you can see different color codes and patterns can be seen. So basically this works on a radar pulses, that when we just allow the radar pulses to penetrate through the pavement, and then when it comes back, we try to catch them with the help of a receiver. And depending upon the dielectric constants of different materials, like concrete है तो उसका dielectric constant अलग होगा, steel है तो उसका अलग होगा, flexible pavement है तो उसका अलग होगा. So depending upon the different dielectric constants at different levels, you can identify, okay, from this point to this point, this is the value, then it can be a steel. From this point to this point, this is a value, then it can be a concrete, like that. So with the help of this, we can have an idea about different layers and different elements below your pavement surface. So for example, I will just show this figure. Yes, so here you can see this complete pattern is same. So we can say that it is a reinforcement, and depending upon the value of dielectric constant, like as you start from bottom to top, you will have a different values. So based on that range, you can decide that what is the material in that particular layer, whether it is a steel, whether it is a concrete. Here you can see there is some gap formation. So this is the top of the void, this is bottom of the void, and then below that again you have a normal surface. It means this is the depth of the void which has been created in your pavement, which needs some improvement. The next is a slab curvature measurement. So this is simply measuring the curvature of the slabs. So you can fix your LVDTs or dial gauges at different locations on the periphery of the slab, and then you try to find out the difference in the warping along x-axis and y-axis, and based on that you can have a decision whether you require any treatment related to that warping distress or not. And the last one is a corrosion. So generally for corrosion, sometimes with the help of GPR also you can have an idea whether the steel is corroded or not, or otherwise you may have to take the cores, and when you take a core, you can physically observe, as if you remember I had showed you one picture where the oil bar was corroded. So physically when you take a core, at that time you can have an idea about whether it is corroded or not. So if it is corroded, then you need to replace that with new dowel bars or new tie bars, as the case may be. Okay. So this was all about different equipments that are available for distresses, functional evaluation, and structural evaluation. As we are not having much time, so I will not go in details about this IRC 117/2015, but I will just show you one small video which shows you the working of this equipment. Is it visible? I think I have to share my screen, right?
Not visible actually.
Yeah, just a minute.
And press that share audio button also.
Is it visible now?
Visible.
Okay. It's not playing. Yeah. So this is a falling weight deflectometer. Small video. So see, this is basically the equipment. Here we are having a sensors, as you can see this, and they can be adjusted at a interval that we want to define. Generally, we place it at an interval of 300 meter. So you get a complete basin of your deflection measurements, like 7 to 9 readings can be taken on one side, and we consider that similar kind of deflection will be there on the opposite side. So if you just join it, you will have a complete basin of deflection measurements with the help of this equipment. This is a place where we allow the load to fall. So basically it is impact load that is being allowed on a road surface, and because of that the impulse is created, and that impulse gives you the deflection measurements at a regular intervals. So I will just continue the video. You can see this is a drop mechanism. These are different sensors. Yellow colors, you can see the pinpoint. These are the sensors which touches your road surface, and this is mounted behind a vehicle. Okay, this is completely weather protected. So emergency, if there is sudden rainfall, you can just cover it and you can protect your equipment. These are different plates of loading. So depending upon at what load you want to test, you can allow the drop. See here, you can see the frame is coming down, and then sudden load will be allowed to drop on the surface. See, this drop is done, and this drop will create the impact. So the impulses are transferring through the sensors, and then gradually as it passes on, it measures the deflection across that section. Okay, so this variation in the deflection, obviously the place where the load is applied, you will get a maximum value of deflection, and as you move away from the load application, the value is going to reduce. So that is how once the test is complete, the frame is again taken up, it is covered, and then you can move on to the next point wherever you want to take the deflection measurements. Drive to the next location. So this is a small video that I wanted to share, that how this FWD actually works. Just a minute, I would still want to share 2-3 slides, because we don't have much time to discuss in detail about the working. Yes. So now, just two, three things that after your evaluation, if you find that there is some voids in your payment layer, so then what is the technique available? So you can go for a grouting. Okay, we know grouting very well, so that grouting techniques can be applied in order to fill the voids wherever you find it. Similarly, retrofitting techniques are available for dowel bars and tie bars, so that can be adopted if you find that the load transfer efficiency is not to the requirement. And third is that if you find that deflection values are too high, the payment is completely deteriorated structurally, then you may go for overlays. That is, you can construct a new concrete payment on the top of your existing payments. So these are three basically types of preservation techniques for rigid payment. The first one is a concrete payment restoration technique, that is CRP. Second one is rehabilitation, and the third one is reconstruction. So I think that's all from my side. We may take up the questions from audience.
So any question from the participants?
You may put it in the chat box also if you have anything to ask.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah. So meanwhile, question comes from the audience. I have one question that to ensure the surface quality,
yes,
which are the minimum tests they are suggested after construction, and what should be the suggested frequency for that?
Basically, if you talk about only the surface defects, then proper curing is very much necessary for concrete payments. So if at the time of construction, due time is given for curing of the payment before opening it for traffic, probably most of the surface defects can be cured off. That is one thing. And if we talk about other functional evaluation techniques, then mostly roughness is a common concern. So for that, it is suggested that irrespective of your payment condition, like every 3 years, you should have an observation by measuring the roughness of your payment. And if you find that there is major, like the value of roughness is too high, then probably there is a call for going for a structural evaluation also, like that.
Okay. And same is the case of flexible payment also.
Yeah, flexible payment, basically the techniques are completely different, because in that the types of failures are also different. So slightly difference is there, but obviously there is also roughness we do have there also, and we have deflection also over there. But few equipments which are useful in rigid payment may not be directly applied on contract on flexible payments.
Even participants, any questions that you have?
I hope I was not too fast, because I was expecting that I will not be able to complete it.
Yeah.
But still, anyways, I think that I had given at least few insights about the different techniques that are available.
Yes, participants, you are requested to put your questions, or you may raise your hands also. We will unmute you for your doubts, whatever you have. Okay, I think the way you have presented, they have got all the doubts clear during the presentation.
That can be opposite meaning also.
So that may be the possibility.
Yeah.
So with this, I would like to thank you on behalf of Marwadi University, Marwadi Education Foundation, as well as Atal Academy, for accepting the invitation and sparing your valuable time and sparing your knowledge. Still, as the question has not come, but if any of the participant is having any doubt afterwards,
you can forward it to me, no problem.
Yeah, sure, we'll forward it to you. And so once again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so with this we end this session, participants, and tomorrow again we will meet for the first session at 9:30 sharp as per our regular time. Okay, so all are, yeah, one question I think has popped up. For air-filled pavement, it is having same technique or what?
Yes, air-filled payment also, we can use the same equipment, okay, because it is also basically a concrete payment only. The only difference that we have is in the structural design, but otherwise the equipments more or less remains same. FWD can be used, we can use roughness meter also on the same.
And acceptance criteria also would be same, or
it might be different. For air-filled payment, the trigger values and the limiting values, definitely it will be different, because there we want a higher standards to be maintained. The safety is a more concern as compared to a normal highways over there. So that will be different, but procedures, methods will be same.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Yeah, still standards are there for
ICO and AAI. Yes, so there is one good book of on airport engineering by Horenzef. It is a foreign author book. In that also they have given one complete chapter, if I'm not wrong, related to this payment evaluation for airfield payments. So maybe that can be referred if you can find it for other details related to airfield payment management.
So,
Ravindra is asking or informing? I think he's asking. Okay.
no. So, okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you soon. Yeah.
Okay. See you. Yeah.
Chalo, bye, Dr. Siddharth.
Bye, bye, dear.
I could see Mazhar sir also in the attendee list. Is he
Yeah.
there? Okay, bye.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.